Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye will lay out her administration's blueprint for state affairs for 2016 as she meets with the big guns in Korea's political, legal and economic spheres. In another massive setback for Korea's main opposition party, its former leader and co-founder Kim Han-gil walks away from the party. His departure comes exactly 3 weeks after political heavyweight Ahn Cheol-soo did the same. Plus, the execution of one man in Saudi Arabia turns the country's war of words with Iran into something much more dangerous. The Saudi government says it's severing ties with Iran after its embassy in Tehran is set ablaze. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, January 4th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye will kick off her new year in office on Monday by holding an annual meeting with top government officials where she'll lay out a blueprint for state affairs for 2016. The list of attendees includes National Assembly Speaker Jung Hui-hwa, Supreme Court Chief Justice Yang Seung-tae, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-an, the chair and the floor leader of the ruling party, and some other 220 top government officials and experts. The main opposition party chairman Moon Jae-in and floor leader Lee Jong-gol say they are not going to attend the meeting, citing the current political tension with the government. President Park is expected to ask the representatives for their cooperation in achieving a successful administration of state affairs this year. She will also likely address the need to pass key pending bills, including those related to economic revitalization and labor reform. Turning now to the latest hammer blow for Korea's embattled main opposition party. The party's co-founder, Kim Han-gil, called it quits on Sunday, not long after his fellow co-founder Ahn Cheol-soo walked away last month. It's just the latest setback for the party, which is struggling to pull itself together ahead of a general election set for April. Lee Soo-eun has the details.
Another top gun is leaving the main opposition party. On Sunday, Representative Kim Han-gil announced she's leaving the Minju Party of Korea. Kim co-founded the party and represented a minority faction that is not loyal to the current party chairman Moon Jae-in.
I will move toward victory in the April general elections and establish a new political order.
Kim's departure leaves the country's main opposition party down 9 lawmakers and thus 9 seats in parliament since December 13th, when co-founder Ahn Cheol-soo became the first to walk away. The party has tried to overcome the crisis by vowing reform and changing its name from New Politics Alliance for Democracy to the Minju Party of Korea, but Kim's departure puts it back on shaky ground. More lawmakers are expected to defect from the main opposition as well, especially with Ahn's declaration that he would create a new party before the April election. On Sunday, Ahn introduced his new team, announcing the names of those who will spearhead the party's launch. Whether Kim will join them is still in question, as he told reporters that he would need to talk it over with Ahn. But many expect that it's only a matter of time before he does, considering his frequent mention of Ahn in his departure announcement. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un stressed the economy over the military in his New Year's address, saying all efforts should be directed toward building an economic power and raising living standards in the country. Now, this is in stark contrast to his previous New Year's speeches, which focused on the country's military strength and/or nuclear capability. Now, Kim used the word Songgun, the North's military-first policy, only twice in this year's speech, according to a report by the South Korea-based Sejong Institute. And that is a noticeable difference from his first New Year's address in 2012 when he used it 17 times. Kim's emphasis on the economy may help explain why the young leader was at the opening of a science technology complex in Pyongyang instead of a military facility on New Year's Day. The complex emphasizes the development of science and technology for growth. Now, it looks like South Korea, the United States and Japan will hold more trilateral meetings this year. The Japanese daily Nihon Keizai Shimbun reported Sunday that the three are working to set up a meeting in March between President Park Geun-hye, President Barack Obama and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Japanese broadcaster NHK reported the three sides are also coordinating a meeting between Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam, his Japanese counterpart Akitaka Saiki, and U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken. This is trying to be arranged for mid-January. Now, South Korea's foreign ministry says it's not yet clear what the discussions will centre on, but it's likely to include North Korea's nuclear missile threats and China's actions to enhance its maritime power. They're all expected to be included on the agenda. Now, most of us have been enjoying the first weekend of the new year, a couple of days spent resting and spending some time with our family and friends. But it's business as usual for the South Korean Navy. They are, of course, dedicated to protecting the country 24/7. Kim Hyun-bin followed them to the western border island of Yeonpyeong-do to see what they do to stay sharp.
An emergency siren rings out across a floating naval base near South Korea's western border island of Yeonpyeong-do. Sailors in full gear head straight to their stations. Within 5 minutes, a naval patrol boat hits the swell and is ready for combat. Soon after, the PKG patrol vessel fires dozens of cannon rounds at enemy ships that infiltrated the maritime border, separating the two Koreas. Bullseye. This exercise is part of the South Korean Navy's New Year firing drill at the northern limit line. South Korean naval ships that set sail to NLL conducts a live firing drill to ensure they're well prepared in case the North launches a surprise attack. Operations around Yeonpyeong-do are particularly sensitive. The island came under artillery bombardment from North Korea in 2010, killing 2 South Korean soldiers and 2 civilians. And the waters around the island have seen naval skirmishes in the recent past.
Our Navy personnel go through intensive training and maintain the highest naval readiness. If the enemy provokes, we will strongly counter and secure the NLL.
Since the shelling of Yeonpyeong-do, South Korea's Navy and the Marine Corps have significantly beefed up their military readiness. The island is now home to 3 times as many multiple rocket launchers and heavy artillery than it used to be.
We're prepared to counter any provocations from the enemy. If the North provokes, we'll respond faster, stronger, and more accurately.
Marking the new year, South Korea's Navy has reiterated its pledge to keep the nation's seas safe and secure, so the rest of us can go about our lives in peace. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Yeonpyeong-do.
Now, there's been a rapid deterioration in the already deeply fractious relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Saudi Arabia says it is formally severing diplomatic ties with Iran amid the deepening row over the kingdom's execution of a prominent Shia cleric. The move comes after Saudi Arabia executed 47 men on Saturday, including the cleric, whose killing sparked an attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran. Now, in a press conference within the last hour or so, Saudi's foreign minister accused Tehran of supporting terrorism. He also announced the evacuation of all Saudi diplomatic staff from Iran. All Iranian officials in Saudi Arabia have 48 hours to leave the country. We'll have more details on this very fluid story in our next newscast at noon Korea time. The former head of the CIA has warned that Afghanistan will re-emerge as a pivotal foreign policy issue in 2016, given the rapid gains made by the Taliban over the last 12 months. The intelligence agency's former acting director, Michael Morell, told CBS's Face the Nation that the Taliban already hold more territory than it has in a long time, and they will make further gains this year. Morell said the US should reconsider how many troops it keeps in Afghanistan. He suggested Washington have upwards of 10,000 boots on the ground. That's double the number President Obama is currently looking at. Back here in Asia, and Vietnam and the Philippines have expressed their deep anger after China landed a plane on an artificial island it built in a contested part of the South China Sea. Vietnam formally accused China of violating its sovereignty, while the Philippines is set to protest the action as well. The Chinese plane made the landing on Saturday at an airfield on Fiery Cross Reef that security experts say could accommodate most Chinese military aircraft. The United States has expressed concern that the latest test flight will aggravate tensions among the countries in the region. Now, China claims almost all of the South China Sea, which is believed to have huge deposits of oil and gas, and through which about $5 trillion of shipborne trade passes each and every year. Brunei, Malaysia and Taiwan all have claims to the area as well. Now, it looks like dark clouds hanging over the global economy will stick around into the new year. This is going to be dragging down growth, largely due to changes in the world's top two economies, the United States and China. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Data compiled by Bloomberg shows financial institutions are projecting global growth of 3.1% on average, the lowest since the aftermath of the global financial crisis in 2009. The International Monetary Fund estimates the global economy will expand by 3.6% this year, but the slightly rosier projection is not exactly a sign of optimism. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde told German business daily Handelsblatt on December 30th that global growth would be disappointing and uneven this year, as a U.S. rate hike will lead to tighter credit conditions and higher debt servicing costs for emerging markets. The IMF calculated that emerging market companies have overborrowed by $3 trillion in the last decade, reflecting a quadrupling of private sector debt between 2004 and 2014. Data compiled by Bloomberg also shows financial institutions project the U.S. will grow at the same rate as last year at 2.5%, while the Chinese economy will expand at the rate of 6.5% this year, slightly lower than the 6.9% it recorded last year. As China is Korea's largest trading partner, the country is likely to see sluggish growth as well. Seoul-based LJ Economic Research Institute says Korea's growth this year will be slightly lower than last year at 2.5%, while state-run think tank Korea Development Institute predicts growth in the mid-2% range. The Bank of Korea said last month it will lower its growth forecast from its current estimate of 3.2% due to higher external risk. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now we can say that the new year is going to be off to a dazzling start, at least for astronomers in the northern hemisphere. According to NASA, stargazers will be able to watch the quadrantid meteor shower streak across the sky early Monday morning. For those in the United States or Europe, depending on which prediction is actually correct, the agency said the peak should last about 2 hours with rates of 120 meteors per hour predicted in areas with dark skies. So it's going to be quite the show. And in mid-January, Comet Catalina, which is currently making its first and only trip through the inner solar system, will be seen the closest between the 14th and 17th for those of you out there living in the northern hemisphere. If you want to look at it, NASA says it would be visible with binoculars if you have a dark sky, but a telescope would be ideal. Now, locally produced movies came out on top at the box office in Korea in 2015, often outperforming their Hollywood rivals. And many credit the upswing to the technological advancements that have played a crucial role in the Korean film industry's resurgence over the past 12 months. Our Park Se-young has the details.
This movie about a man who hunts down the last tiger in Korea was filmed without a tiger. In fact, the nearly 4-meter-long tiger is a 100% computer-generated character, and it took the visual effects team a year and about $3.5 million to create it. To bring the tiger to life, the team observed tigers at every zoo in Korea, analyzing every detail. The actor who played the tiger climbed mountains and studied the movements and facial expressions of tigers to get the mannerisms just right.
My role was to make the other actors believe there was actually a tiger in front of them. I tried to absorb the energy of everyone on set.
Parts of a movie, The Himalayas, were actually filmed in the Himalayas, but members of the CGI team also used computer-generated imagery to create realistic hiking scenes. All of this was created with less than a tenth the budget of most major Hollywood films, and the results are surprisingly similar with few differences in quality.
One important aspect in the Korean film industry's advancement is technology. Even though they have far lower budgets than Hollywood films, production crews are still able to cook up competitive scenes.
With the rapid advances in technology, experts expect a bright future for the Korean film industry. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll be back throughout the day with many more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.